Welcome back everyone to another Kerbal Space Program video, and today's Kerbal Space Program video we're going to be doing something that we've never done before, and that is going to be a recreation mission. So in today's video, if you haven't already been able to tell by the title, is a Saturn V or an Apollo mission, or specifically Apollo 11. So I'm basically going to recreate the entire Saturn V rocket and then fly it as closely to the Apollo 11 mission layout as I can. The one thing that is not like the actual Saturn V rocket is the fact that I did not have a second stage with 5 engines, because you'll be able to see in a minute I ended up taking it out. But the reason for that is because I felt it was too powerful and it wasn't really efficient to fly in Kerbin and everything. I mean, I probably could have ejected the stage earlier, but I ended up having it, like, I didn't even start using the third stage until burning for the Mun. So it was a little bit too much delta V, so I ended up not using it. But aside from that, you can see that so far we've constructed the service module and the lunar excursion module, or in this case the lunar excursion module, which is going to land and ascend from the Mun with 2 Kerbals. And then we have this stage with that one skiff engine, which is meant to mimic the J2 engine from the actual Saturn V. And then this is the stage that I ended up taking out with the 5 J2 engines. And then this is our final stage with the 5 Mastodon, or in the real life Saturn V, the F1 engines. So now most of the entire construction is actually done. I'm pretty sure I just ended up adding some of those fins, but now I'm just changing all the staging, and then there's those fins, and now we can well, not exactly, but now I'm just going to take off that stage there and then reattach this main one so we can launch now. That was a pretty fast construction, nothing too crazy. I'm pretty sure it's around like 70 parts, but it wasn't that much thinking to do, as it was pretty much already laid out for us in the way of the actual Saturn V, meaning like I didn't really have to do any of the calculations on how much delta V we would have, because it's already mostly done for us. But now we're launching. Okay, that already happened. But now we're launching standard ascent profiles, starting at full throttle, and then once we get to 1,000 meters, we can start to angle ourselves. And what I was doing just there was locking the gimbal, or the vectoring, on that middle Mastodon engine, just to be as true to the Apollo missions as I can be, or as true to the Saturn V as I can be. I locked out the gimbal on that middle one. But now we got our apoapsis up to 80 kilometers, and then we can just adjust our orbit like normal, pretty standard stuff. This is not going to be anything too crazy. It's just going to be a regular moon mission. A regular Mun mission. Instead, this time we're going to have orbital rendezvous. So we're going to leave the service module up in orbit around the Mun, and then the lander is going to come back up and dock with it, and then that's how we're going to get back to Kerbin. Just finalizing our orbit here, raising it up. I ended up not using the maneuver node at the end. I just pointed retrograde and then warped to apoapsis to bring up our periapsis, which you could always do. You don't really need maneuver nodes to get into orbit, but I like to use them just to get into precise circular orbit, or try to as much as I can. But now we just need to reconfigure the craft so we can undock that service module and then redock it to the lunar excursion module with the docking ports on there, and then set the Mun as our target and change our inclination. This mission was I really enjoyed it. Doing recreations is something that I really enjoy doing, because you can kind of do it and try and make it as faithful to the real mission as you want. You can try and make it as faithful as you can, and try and do things how they were done in real life, and it kind of poses a new challenge, not only trying to get places, but trying to do them in a certain way, because when you do a mission yourself, you can kind of make it your own way because it's your mission that you've done for the first time. But here I'm trying to get everything as closely as I can. And speaking of that, now why it's taking me so long to get a Mun encounter is because I was trying to go for a free return trajectory, but all of those maneuvers, like our periapsis would have been way too high above the Mun's surface, and we wouldn't have enough delta V in the lander stage to get us back up to the service module. So that's why I ended up just going for regular orbit, because, you know, we had the delta V, and the main reason to do a free return trajectory is in case something bad happens, like, you know, engine failure. All of the Kerbinauts or astronauts can get back to Earth safely without, you know, like if they have an engine failure, like I'm saying, they don't have to do any extra burns. The gravity of the Mun will get them back into Earth's atmosphere. So yeah, that's pretty neat. Anyways, now I just brought down the thrust limiter like I usually do for Mun encounters to kind of make them as precise as possible, and here we got it to 29 kilometers above the Mun's surface, and then we can just plan to bring it down to a nice 30 kilometers on each side for a pretty circular orbit along the equator, which is following Apollo pretty nicely. Now we're just doing our orbital insertion burn, just like this. And now at this point we can transfer 2 of our Kerbals into the lander can. We don't have any like Jeb, Valentina, Bob, or Bill, just because they're off. I think 2 of them are on the space station, and some of them are at the Duna base. So we'll have to kind of cycle them around. But I'm thinking, you know, this is kind of a good time to say that I'm thinking of, you know, kind of retiring this save file and using it for recreation missions only, and then using a science mode as my main save, you know, to do other missions and stuff. Not necessarily tutorials, because my tutorial videos don't get that many views compared to other ones, and they're kind of long to make. So if they're not really getting watched, I'm just not going to make them anymore. And I feel like people will enjoy these missions more than, you know, tutorials, because, you know, less people will probably need tutorials than others. So yeah, so basically what I'm saying is I'm just going to use this save file for recreation missions and stuff like that. And then I'm going to use a science mode save to do stuff, because I feel like, you know, when you consider putting science on your crafts, it kind of just makes them feel a little bit more purposeful than if they don't have science. Like here, if we were doing this in a science mode, you know, we would try and get science on here and bring as much back to Kerbin as we could. But I digress. That's not the topic of today's video. Anyways, now we can just get a nice, here I was just getting a screenshot for the thumbnail image, so you will see a variation of the thumbnail image here. And now we can just get our Kerbals back into the lander can, like so. I probably should have put a ladder on there. And then we can warp so that the service module is a little bit behind us, and then we can decouple and get that other stage that just has the lunar excursion like capsule thing. Yes, because that's how the Apollo missions work, so that's how we're gonna do it. Now we're just extending our orbit. Here I wasn't using an exact like kind of pointing retrograde or prograde or anti-normal or normal. I was kind of just doing it by eye and moving on the nav ball according to how it needed to be done, and then just getting our approach like that. We were cutting it, or I did cut it a bit fine with the delta V. I believe now we have like 175 meters per second, which was barely enough. And then right before we docked, we actually ran out of monopropellant, which usually wouldn't be a big deal, as we could have used the monopropellant on the service module to dock. But this capsule, or, you know, command module, does not have any SAS, so the only way you can orient it is with the monopropellant thrusters, and that's why you probably noticed that I was using monopropellant on the whole descent of landing on the Mun, which I usually do not do. But now, yep, there we just ran out of our monopropellant, and then in order to stop the rotation, I just enabled time warp really quickly, which you can do to stop rotation of anything, like you know, if you're trying to align somewhere, and you enable time warp, unless it's physical time warp, it's gonna cancel it out. But we put that behind us because we docked. I just transferred what remaining fuel I had left in the lunar lander module, or the lunar lander module, just because I don't know, really. It's not like I decided to not leave this in orbit around the Mun, which is how the Apollo missions did it, but we had enough Delta V to bring it back with us, and it wasn't too much extra weight. Yeah, now I was just planning our lunar escape kind of burn, and then now we can kind of deorbit into Kerbin's atmosphere. So I brought it down to a nice 50 kilometers, which I always like to do. I always like bring it down to about 50 kilometers when I'm entering Kerbin's atmosphere, just because it's not too crazy hot, or it's not too crazy thick of an atmosphere, and it's not too light that it's going to take, you know, a ton of time for us to slow down with aero braking. You might have seen there that I undocked the lunar or the lunar lander module, just because you know, I didn't want to blow up on us, but then it actually almost ended up hitting the service module again, which would have been kind of counterproductive on what we were trying to do. And yeah, that's pretty much that. And now we're just kind of landing on Kerbin's deserts. The Apollo missions, or any mission, usually lands on or in the ocean or in the water, just because it's a much softer touchdown, especially when you're going like 20 miles per hour. It's gonna hurt hitting the ground. But yeah, now we deployed our drogue chutes, and then our main parachute's deployed, so we jettisoned that heat shield, and we're just waiting to touch down at a nice 5 meters per second, which, I mean, now that I think about it, that's pretty fast. What is that, like 20 feet per second, I think. No, that's 15 feet per second that we touched down, which is pretty fast. But anyways, now we can I decided to take my Kerbals out on a nice EVA quickly. But yeah, that's the entire mission. I really hope you guys enjoyed. I'm sorry I didn't post last week. I just kind of decided to take a week off and, you know, just play in my free play save of Kerbal Space Program, and, you know, just have fun. I didn't really want the stress of making another video and editing and everything. So yeah, that's why we didn't get a video last week, but we got one this week. So if you enjoyed it, leave it a like, and if you've enjoyed everything I've been producing so far, consider subscribing. It will help greatly. We're getting viewer retention up a little bit, which is nice. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.